We have 4 simple rules. Number 1, we don't discuss politics, ever. Number 2, this is not a religious channel, and while you might hear people say, God bless you, or I'm going to pray for you, or I wouldn't have gotten through this without my faith, that's fine. What's not fine is to say, my God is better than your God, or here's why you're not getting into heaven. It's not going to fly. Number 3, we believe wholeheartedly if you can't control your tongue, then you can't control your life. So while on board, there's not going to be any cursing in the live chat. Period. And number 4, there is no room for mean people on the lifeboat. Because we discuss very sensitive things from people's past in our group setting, we got to protect those people. The only way they feel confident and comfortable discussing those things is in an environment that is free of trolls and mean people. So if you're a mean person or you're a troll, we're going to block you for life. And if your account happens to be less than 24 hours old, we're probably a little suspicious right from the word go. Why? Well, because there are people in this world who enjoy being cruel solely for the sake of being cruel. It's not going to fly here. But if you're here because you're trying to get sober and live your best life, then you might find that the lifeboat is just that, a lifeboat. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and we will see you on deck. Hey, everybody. Here on the lifeboat, and I'm Tommy. Hopefully you're having a good weekend. So far, so good. Am I looking really, really white? Kind of look like Uncle Fester. Now I'm getting yellow. Man, I hate when this does that. Let's see if that helps. Not at all. Not at all. We're going to do one of those in and out where I change colors the entire show. Hate that. But it is what it is. So good to see you all. Let's see, who do we got? Flamin' Jackson, Seventh Son, Virginia, Alan Ballantyne, Crazy Brumfield, good to see you. Hello, Full of Hope. Charlie Murphy, Alan Ballantyne. I think I said Virginia, but I'm going to say it again. How are you, Virginia? Blue, always a pleasure. Miss V, Zen Wen, and Squirrel. Come on, stop that. Squirrel is on one, man. She has been on one. Squirrel escaped yesterday and then escaped again today. I don't know if she knows what's going on. She gets the vibe about everything getting packed up and realizes that something's going on, but she is just hell on wheels right now. So we'll just hold her down here. She actually turned this off once already, and I saved it. Johnny, good to see you. Hobotographer, glad you're here. Alan, Mark, Mr. Egan, good to see you. All right, people. So if you saw the thumbnail, the Twilight Zone. There's this entire sobriety thing for a lot of us is bizarre and grind to shine. So hold on, let's see what you see here. So I have done recovery content for a few years, relapsed, and just got home from 3 months in jail. But I'm sober and blessed to have another chance. You know what? 3 months is not a bad stay. Sometimes, you know what, that might just be enough. We're glad that you're back. We're glad you're checking us out. And hopefully this is the one, right? It's I spent a lot of time in and out myself. I spent time in the federal and the state system. So spent some time in county jails waiting to go. County jail is worse. People don't have a perspective usually, but county jail is worse than prison. It is the absolute worst. There's no freedom at all in there. It's awful. It really is. So we're glad that you're here. Truthfully, we are. Squirrel. Sorry, Squirrel's the cat, and she is just absolutely out of control. Stacy Michaels, good to see you. So it is. Well, that's just fine. Sorry, people. You know what? When people send me text messages and I don't check them, bad things always happen later. So I'm going to check this real quick and just make sure no one's in any trouble. Appreciate your patience. I really do. But every once in a while you get one of these that's bad, if you know what I mean. So, but I appreciate everybody coming in. I hope that your weekend is off to a good one. Mine, you know what? It hasn't been bad. It is, there really is something to this whole Twilight Zone thing. The sobriety, depending on how long you spent using, sobriety becomes your baseline, right? So we spend so much time under the influence that once you start getting sober, everything you're doing is new. Everything you're doing has that feel to it, like you've never been down this road before. And sometimes it, Mark, good to see you. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. And I found that it was like that in the beginning. You know, that every experience I did, I spent, as most of you know, I spent more than 30 years under the influence, and the vast majority of that under the influence of heroin. So once I got into the whole sober thing, it was every experience I was doing, it felt like I was doing it for the first time. And I think a lot of us go through that as you start to come out of the time that you spend under the influence. Everything is so new and everything is so unusual that it takes a lot of getting used to. And after about 7 years, you know, closing in on 8 now, I kind of thought that I was past that. Like I was to the point where sobriety was the norm, and I wasn't doing too many things that I was doing for the first time sober. You know, those experiences were pretty much over, which was easier for me. Joanna, good to see you. Joanna, do me a favor and send me a message and let me know whether or not I need to. I just got something to accept you, and I'm afraid that it's somebody hacked you, and I don't want to check on that if it's not right, if it's not you rather. Shelly, Grace, good to see you. So now that this move is coming, as you guys know, I'm packing up and selling the house, and it is really it's Twilight Zone stuff again, because I've never moved sober in my life, and it didn't occur to me until I was deep in this move and all of the emotion stuff that was going along with it. Never in my life have I left a place to go to another when I was not wildly under the influence of something. And this whole process now is new, and there's a bunch of emotional garbage that goes along with moving. In fact, they have this stress, this thing that you take to determine how much stress you have in your life. And the very first question on that test is, when was the last time you moved? And how many times have you moved in the last 5 years? Because there's very little that is more stressful than moving. Like our friend that just said, you know, after just getting out of prison. Franklin, good to see you, bud. Franklin's still killing it, by the way. People still sober. Well done, Franklin. So when you know, even getting out of a 3-month stint in a jail, everything all of a sudden, you know, it's back to the real world after you've been doing something else. And those kind of events, those kind of changes can put you into a direction that you don't want to go in. Monk, good to see you. We talk all the time about how addiction, for the most part, is feeling uncomfortable in your own skin and the need to make that feeling go away. And anyone that's been on dope for any length of time or spent too much time drinking knows that feeling when you're sitting there and you get that overwhelming calling, that desire to go use your substance of choice. And it becomes almost unbearable. It's like a voice in your head that's screaming for you to feed it. If you're listening and you've never done drugs, we don't hear voices, but it's that calling from deep within you that can't really be explained unless you've done it, and most of us have. But that calling, that unbelievable feeling to make yourself comfortable. It's not, people talk about getting high, and somebody sent me a clip of Dr. Phil the other day, and he was talking about harm reduction. And you know how I feel about harm reduction. So he was just absolutely chastising anyone that believes that you should do anything to help someone who is in addiction. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's really his take, that if you provide people with clean needles, people that have never thought of doing dope before are going to go, oh man, they're giving needles out on 6th Street. Let's let's pick up a habit. But he was going through all of these different parts of harm reduction, and even down to Narcan. He said, if you take away all of the responsibility that goes along with drug use, there's no reason for anyone to quit. He said, you give Narcan out and someone does a little bit too much and they take some Narcan and then they're fine again and they can just restart. It absolutely blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. I mean, you talk about the Twilight Zone. I'm staring at this screen thinking, am I the only one that gets it? And then, of course, I realized that anyone watching that show who has spent any amount of time addicted to anything realizes that the reason that putting together a live format where people can get together and talk and listen to one another, the reason that it is so important is because outside of this kind of a environment, it is very, very difficult to find people who understand what you're going through. The normal people on this planet have very little perspective on what it means to feel uncomfortable in your own skin. I'm sure they go through periods of time where they feel discomfort. They don't feel it to the point where they need to run out and make that go away. Also in that show, Dr. Phil kept saying, getting high, getting high, getting high. And they were referring more often than anything to people on heroin. And finally, about the time I was ready to throw the iPad against the wall, somebody stood up and said, I was on heroin for 25 years. He said, in the last 15, I didn't get high once. And I think that, sadly, there's just a misconception about everything that we do. And that, we're out all of the time, it's a party from the time we get up until the time we go to bed. And we've been doing that our entire life. And, truth be told, what we're trying to do is feel normal. And the inverse starts to happen once you get sober. Right? We find ourselves where we spent all of that time using a substance to feel normal. When you get to the point where sobriety starts to feel normal, you no longer have that feeling of feeling uncomfortable in your own skin. But when it comes on, when you start feeling like, the feeling that you felt every day, when it does come on, I've had it about 5 times in the last couple of days. Not for any length of time. One of the things that I've learned, hey, Militant Vegan, good to see you. One of the things that I've learned is that the longer that I am, the longer that I am sober, the more that I come to the realization that you only have to get that thought out of your head for a really short period of time. If you sit and you say, I've been thinking about getting high for 12 hours and it's been driving me nuts, you've allowed that to happen. And I'm not busting on anybody, but that's the truth. When that feeling comes on, if you do something, if you reach into the bag of tricks and do something to make that go away, usually it will go away. It's not going to linger all day long. The reason that those linger is because we feed into it. As the automatic negative thoughts start to tear you up, as you start getting the feeling of you're a loser, I don't even know why you're trying to do this. It's just you're going to do the exact same thing you did last time. You're never going to be a success. I don't even know why you're wasting your time with this. You're just going to do. If you let that go and you feed into it and it starts to gain momentum, you can do that for 12 hours. And if you get through 12 hours of that without using, God bless you. Honestly, it's amazing. If you develop tools to get you through those feelings, to get you through that time when it's overwhelming. And we've all been there. But, one of the things we talk about all the time here on the Lifeboat is if you start getting that feeling and you're sitting on the couch and the thoughts are starting to go through your head and, man, this is a waste of time. I've never made it 4 months. I don't even know why I'm doing this. At 60 days, this is just a waste of my time. Get the hell off the couch. If you are being bombarded with automatic negative thoughts and they're not going away, you try to put, we have this conversation a lot, but 2 things cannot take up the same space at the same time, right? If I want to put something else in my hand, then this has to be removed. And the brain is the same way. When people talk about, well, I was multitasking. No. I mean, maybe you could do something with this hand, but multitasking as in your brain thinking 2 thoughts at the same time does not happen. Just does not happen. So in order to have a thought, you have to remove the other one. This is why there are 60,000, they say, unique thoughts a day in the average person's head. So if you have 60,000 unique thoughts a day, and we're awake, 14 hours. It gives you an idea of just how fast things go like this in your head, right? It's one right after the other, unless you lock onto something. And then every one of the thoughts that you may have 400 unique thoughts. They're all the exact same brand. And that is, I'm a loser. I don't know why I'm doing this. I should get high. I'll feel so much better, man. One shot would make this go away. And this time I'm only going to do one. I'm not going to do it tomorrow, right? I just need to do one. I can control it. I've been sober 6 months. I know I can control it this time. Sorry, peeps. The reason, this is not a daily thing with the phone. People, I've got somebody that I have been talking to today who is really, really having a bad time. And I would just like to make sure that this person said some stuff earlier today about self-harm, right? We don't use the word because we don't, we know how the big red button feels about that word, but I'm just making sure it's not that person. I spoke to them for a little while and I don't want, when people start having conversations like that, but that's not them. The point being, get up and get out of the room, right? If two thoughts cannot occupy the same brain at the same time, you need to replace a negative thought with another thought. Positive would be great, but it just has to be something other than. There's a reason that getting outside and walking around is fantastic. Automatic negative thoughts thrive when you do not give your senses anything to do. Follow me? All right. So your five senses, if we're bombarding them with new things, you walk outside and all of the smells of nature or a city or whatever, but all of those smells bombard you. And your brain starts to have to process all of those smells in order for you to understand, what is that I'm smelling, kind of a thing, right? It's happening at light speed, but your brain is going to work. At the same time, your brain is taking all of those pixels and all of those little rods and cones of light coming in, right? And having to put it together so that you see something, right? The computer in your head is literally processing everything that it's looking at and giving you an image so that it makes sense to your mind. So you got a lot going on just smelling and looking. And now you've got all of the sounds. Well, if you're staring at gray walls, this is the worst. And if you're incarcerated, you're looking at four walls that are not going to move, and you're going to be there all day long. It's the reason that people inside program. They have something that they do every single day, and they spend a decent amount of time working out, because while you're working out, automatic negative thoughts don't have a whole lot to do. You're counting reps, you're counting sets. You're taking turns. So you're working while one guy is sitting down, and then he's, you're looking at him while he's working out. Anytime you can start to bombard your senses with things that they are not looking at, while the automatic negative thoughts, while the ants are crawling all over your brain, you want to start kicking in all of those senses, one right after the other, right? So if you're not locked in the damn room, don't lock yourself in the damn room. If you're starting to go through it, if that's something that is starting to really work you over, then get up, go outside, leave that spot that you were in. If you sit in a room all day long doing nothing, you're going to get high. I promise you. I promise you. Idle hands are the absolute worst thing that you can do. Downtime is the death of sobriety, because you're giving your brain free rein to just beat the crap out of you. If you keep the brain occupied, most of us who have had a habit, if you've ever had a job while having a habit, it's not a difficult thing to get through the 8 hours that you're at work without getting loaded, because you're doing something, right? You're all day long. There's something going on, and you got to do this. You got to think about that. And you're keeping yourself occupied. The problem starts when you are no longer occupied. When I first got sober, for me, it was a 24-hour day thing. I had to keep something happening in my head nonstop. I had to go from one thought to another that had nothing to do with drugs. If I stumbled, if I paused for a second, the automatic negative thoughts started. And as most of you know, when I got sober in a lockdown setting, right? I was in a penitentiary, and I could get dope in the penitentiary easier than I could on the street. You didn't have to call a dealer because you're in a unit that's 50 yards long. It's not like anybody could hide. You could walk down the tier, and there were 4 or 5 people that were selling who would give it to you, and we'll just figure out the payment later. And that's how it worked. So in the very beginning, I honestly had to be engaged every single waking moment. That if my eyes were open, I had to have something taking up my time. Journaling became huge for me at this point. It became huge because even if I had automatic negative thoughts, if there were ants doing me in and I grabbed a notebook, took a pen and put it down on paper, I might write the first couple of negative thoughts that I had in my brain. But as you start to write things down, we talk about this a lot, you're going to shift your brain from the emotional part, because I promise you, automatic negative thoughts aren't logical. They're never logical. They're always illogical. Illogical thoughts don't really come to you from the frontal lobe. Illogical thoughts are driven by emotion. Now, we've all been really, really angry at one time or another in our life, at our significant other, at a friend, at anything, where you're doing really stupid stuff without making decisions, right? If you're a guy, you've probably thrown something at a wall at some point in your life. We often say things that the second they leave our mouth, we go, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. You would do anything to be able to have it back. It's not your frontal lobe having that conversation. That is the emotional part of your brain. And if you give the steering wheel to the emotional or the reactive part of your brain, you're in deep trouble. What we want to do always is shift any of that when the automatic negative thoughts start coming, and when the woe is me, boy, do I want to get high, when all of that, hey, guacaholic, when all of that starts, we want to shift our brain out of the emotional and into the logical. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to grab a pen. Truthfully, number one, the act of writing. Forget the thought process that goes into it, but the act of writing requires you to use a part of your brain that is completely different, right? This has to get connected to this, and all of that process where we just, as much as it may feel automatic, it is not, I assure you, an automatic thing. And again, if you're watching this for the first time, I don't do this often. I really don't. I let the phone just sort of go, but I'm worried about this individual here. So, okay, sorry. So journaling became a huge thing for me in the very beginning. A huge thing. I spent way more time journaling then than I do now. Now, journaling is something that I do at night, and it's something that I do in the morning. When I first started, and it was funny because I'm packing up. When I first started, I would journal all day long, no exaggeration. And especially if we were on lockdown, you could work out for 2 hours, and then the rest of the day, you're just stuck in a room with the inability to do anything else. So I would grab a pen and I would start writing, and I'm packing up tons of stuff. I'm putting in boxes, taping boxes up, the whole drill when you get ready to move. But I've come across so much of the stuff that I wrote, and it's really amazing. One of the other beautiful things about journaling throughout an entire run of sobriety is the ability to go back and look at what you were going through in the beginning, what I was trying to overcome in terms of thoughts, the thought processes that were trying to do me in. And it's funny because you look back and you remember things differently than they really are. And I think we do this in everything in life, but I remember really being down on myself. I remember the automatic negative thoughts of, man, I don't know why you're wasting your time. You're just going to end up using, this is just, give in now. You may as well, you're going to fail anyway. You may as well not suffer in the process, right? Hey, Dennis Bruce, nice to see you. That's not what was going on. When I went back and read, what I was doing most of the time was, as long as you quit before you leave. Most of the stuff that I was trying to overcome, when you read what I wrote, it was always that, man, you got 6 more years in here, 5 more years in here. I mean, you could get high for the next 2 years and you wouldn't have to deal with all this pain now. If you're going to do it, you may as well not. What's the point of hurting for 6 years, when you could hurt for 4 and then still get out the same way? That was the mindset, apparently, that really was driving my early sobriety. I spent a lot of time trying to get over that. I couldn't get past the fact that eventually the pain was going to stop. And I don't mean just emotional, but physical. As long as I had done dope, when I stopped using, my body just went, really, really tried to do me in. My brain was using every bit of pain that I had ever had, every injury, and having skied the way I did for as long as I did, I had a lot a lot of really serious injuries, Achilles tendon tears and, knee damage and shoulder surgeries and all of the stuff that I went through. My brain would pick on that injury and it would drive me nuts for 3 or 4 days. My knee would be just constantly in pain. And I just equated the two that, boy, if I just did dope, all those pains go away. There's no reason I should have to deal with this. And one of the things that I found, and it's not the same for everybody, people, it's not, but I had a very thick medical file, a really, really thick medical file. And what I found was that over time, I was perfectly convinced that all of the pain that I was suffering was real. And by real, I mean there was a mechanism of some kind causing that pain. There was something wrong with that knee. The pain was real in that it hurt like hell, but there was nothing wrong with the knee. It was the brain trying to convince me that something was wrong with the knee, so I would feed it. Psychosomatic pain. And I know I get emails, boy, do people get angry when I say this. And I explain it every time and people still don't get it. I'm not saying you're not in pain. Get it? Let's say that again. I'm not saying that you're not in pain. Pain is a chemical reaction in the brain. That's what it is. There is a chemical process in the brain that causes you to feel pain. You put your hand on a stove and there is a reaction in the brain that goes, shouldn't do that. That hurts, right? And it sends a signal, so we'll stop doing what we're doing. That's the thought process behind pain, right? Don't do this anymore. You're injuring yourself. Or you're injured. Take care of that until it heals. That's the idea. Trouble is your brain will hijack that. So after I had all of these surgeries, my brain just kept saying, no, that's still messed up. Real pain, as opposed to psychosomatic pain, both hurt. One chemical reaction is caused by something like putting your hand on a stove. The other is caused by the memory of the fact that your hand was once on a stove. And your brain wants you to feel the same pain so that you will use. Amazingly, it doesn't just happen with the physical. It happens with the mental. It happens with the spiritual. It happens with the emotional. Any pain that you felt, whatever made that pain happen, your brain has the ability to conjure that back up. And the memories that are the deepest ingrained in you are not happy ones, because there's no real reason for your brain to file that away with this is real important that we never forget this. That's not the way it works, unfortunately. The memories that are the most vivid for most people are memories that are tied to either spiritual, physical, or emotional pain. And the reason is they don't want you to do it again. So they're going to make sure that you remember that in a big way. Like the time you tried to surf on top of a car going 40. The car goes around a corner, you fly off, you get road rash, right? That's going to be really etched into your brain so that the next time you've had 4 beers and you think getting on top of the roof of a car that's moving, you'll remember that that's a really bad idea, right? It ingrains these things that we've done into our brain like a record. It cuts a real deep groove. If you've done something that caused serious pain, then your memory is going to be far greater than it would be if it had been any other way. Okay, peeps. I'm sorry. You know what? I really apologize, people. I really do. But if this was any one of you, I would do the exact same thing. We're calling it a night early, people. This is someone in a really bad way. And I don't think that there's anyone else on this person's 5. So I am the only individual that this person reaches out to. And if something happened while I was live, I would never forgive myself. So I'm going to shut this down. And if you're someone who prays, would you please pray for someone on the boat? I promise you, God will know who you're talking about. But I need to contact this individual. I'm really, really sorry, but I would do this for anybody here. I will be back tomorrow morning, 11 hours from now. I'm sorry, crew. I really am. But I will be back in the morning. And I will revisit this because this was a topic I really wanted to talk about. I'm getting to you. Yeah. Alrighty, peeps. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and I will see you all on the next one. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate you. God bless.